Hey, it's Tom here, and welcome back to another episode of the Investing with Tom podcast. Now, in this episode, I got the chance to speak with Neil from the Adventurous Investor YouTube channel. Neil is actually a returning guest to the podcast, and he is one of our 12-person strong YouTube team around Movember. So we're all kind of freshly shaven. We recorded this episode on only the 2nd of November, so we haven't had much of a chance to grow out a nice moustache yet, but we are doing that in an effort to raise money for the Movember Foundation, which predominantly focuses on men's mental health and suicide prevention. Now, Neil actually got his start in investing predominantly in the real estate market, and that is still a big chunk of his portfolio for sure. But he's been shifting more towards investing in equities and investing in businesses through the stock market. So as part of that, in this episode, we got the chance to discuss businesses like Alibaba, like the A2 Milk Company, and also like Micron. So it was a really interesting conversation with Neil. Neil is also a very passionate snowboarder, and that actually led him to make an investment in like a mountain hut in Japan. So it was also interesting to kind of talk through that story with him as well. One thing I will mention before we play the recording is that although the final recording for the video and everything came out pretty high quality, I kind of afterward recorded this episode, as we were actually recording the podcast, we were really battling with like a 1 or 2 second lag between us, particularly in kind of the first half. So Neil and I both apologize for any awkward pauses or us kind of cutting each other off that might appear in this episode. I promise it gets a little bit better towards the second half of the podcast, and it was a really enjoyable conversation with Neil nonetheless. So thanks to Neil for appearing on this episode. If you want to follow along with what Neil's doing, all of his links will be down in the description below, as well as the Movember links if you're interested in contributing to that campaign. But without any further ado, let's roll the episode, and I hope you enjoy. Neil, the Adventurous Investor, thanks for coming on the podcast. I'm glad to have you back. How's it going?
Awesome, bro. No, it's good to be back. It's always good yarning with you, mate.
Yeah, for sure. We've teamed up for this podcast, but we're also pretty cleanly shaven at the moment because we're both doing the Movember campaign. Have you figured out what style moustache you're going to try put together just yet?
Nah. I was having a little bit of a look actually yesterday, and I was like, what should I go? I mean, I've done Movember in the past, and I went with the what do you call it, the trucker or whatever it was. And
oh yeah,
Jesus, by the end of the month, I was looking pretty rough. So I don't know. I might just go with the standard. I don't know. I was thinking about putting it out for a bit of a poll, but then I'm sure everyone will just go with the most outrageous one if I put it out to a poll. So I don't know. Don't know what to do.
Yeah,
how about yourself?
Yeah,
any ideas?
Yeah, I think it's a bad decision to get crowd votes on that sort of thing because it's going to look terrible. No. I feel like with with wives and girlfriends and stuff, I feel like even just participating in Movember is tough to get across the line. So you don't want to be going for outrageous handlebars and truckers and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, I think we might just have to keep it with the classic Mo, but it'll be interesting. We've got a good team together.
What's that?
It'll be interesting. We got a good team together, 12 of us this year.
Oh, it's so good, mate. Now, thanks heaps for putting it together. I think it's awesome, mate. It's such a good charity, and they're doing a lot of good. Like it's incredible how far they've grown from, I think it was 2003 they started, maybe, I think it was. But it was just like started with 30 blokes, and now I think they're up to maybe 6 million or something people growing those, which is just phenomenal, eh?
Yeah, it's crazy impressive.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I think the total amount raised is probably around $1 billion now, I want to say, or it may even be greater than that at this point since 2003 or something when they started out. A couple of Aussies over a beer. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Shit, I didn't realise it was that high. That's awesome. Yeah. No, I was reading about their history just only a few days ago, actually, having a bit of a look through the website, and I was reading about just a couple of lads having a laugh. Thought, should we grow a Mo? Yeah, let's do it and go with that. Razzled up 30 mates and away they went.
Yeah, it's a cool story. Yeah, well, I'm hoping we can pull something together. If anyone's listening in and doesn't know what we're talking about, Neil and I are two of a 12-person finance YouTuber team, which we've called what is it, the margin of safety, which shout out to all the Ben Graham fans listening in. You'll know what that means. And
Great
yeah,
name,
raise
though.
yeah, great name. We got to thank Karan Ganani for that one. So yeah, hopefully raise
Yeah.
some good money for a good cause. I'm doing the Mo. I'm just doing the Mo, but I know Neil, you've been doing the Mo, and you've run like 2 back-to-back 10Ks, which I'm not going to be doing that part, but
Yeah.
that's pretty impressive as well.
Yeah, legs are hurting now, though.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. Well, maybe for some of those for some of the people that maybe didn't listen to the first time you're on the podcast or haven't come across you before, do you want to just maybe quickly introduce yourself and kind of how you got started in this whole investing and finance world, and with the YouTube channel as well?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I've always had a pretty sort of keen interest in business and investing, I guess, from quite a young age. Sort of even as a teenager, selling odds and ends and things down at the local markets and whatnot. And I think just as you progress through life, you always sort of, I don't know, similar to yourself and similar to probably a lot of investors out there, I'd imagine. You think it's pretty easy to work out that if you just work, your Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and you don't do much with that money, you're not gonna have a very comfortable retirement, let's say. So it's just a no-brainer, I feel. So that's sort of what got me started. And then you just start reading a few books, like the classic Rich Dad, Poor Dad was one of the first books I picked up, actually, which was awesome. It's such a good sort of basic sort of foundational book to sort of open your eyes a little bit to the world of investing, I guess. And then, I don't know, over the years, I've predominantly focused on property for a good number of years, actually. That was my sort of main core focus, whereas only recently, probably over the last, I've been investing in the equity markets for a long time as well, but early days I didn't really know what I was doing, as most people probably fit into that boat a little bit as well. Starting the YouTube channel once you sort of got forced into lockdown. And to be honest, I hadn't really looked at YouTube at all with regards to investing. I just didn't think there was anything on there. I mainly looked it up for the odd snowboarding videos, and then come across yourself and Brandon and Hamish and a few other YouTubers on there, and thought, bugger it, I might have a crack myself. And there, went from there.
Yeah,
That's
nice.
the
Well,
YouTube journey.
yeah, nice. Well, I'm glad you did, because it's going well, and it's like one of the reasons that I always talk about starting a YouTube channel is to like meet other like-minded people, which I don't know about yourself, but I find that really challenging in everyday life to talk to people that are interested in finance and investing, and especially once you get really niche, like you go from just investing in general to investing in shares to value investing, like Warren Buffett style. It's like obviously fewer and fewer people are into that, so I'm glad you joined the YouTube community as well.
Oh, it's so good, mate. Like you say, it gives you access to like-minded people. It's so good. Like, I wouldn't know you if I didn't. Obviously, if I could watch you consume your content, but I don't know. It's awesome. My wife stirs me up a little bit, like, hanging out with your YouTube friends, sort of thing. But I tell her to shush. So yeah, I don't know. I really enjoy it. Just that aspect of it. It's probably one of the main sort of things that keeps me sort of ticking away with it. And it also just forces you to keep reading, keep learning, keep researching about investments, and then you just get better and better as you progress along with it, I guess.
Yeah.
I initially started out investing in the equity markets, or especially over these last sort of like 5-6 years, off the back of a lot of Scott Pape's recommendations. Are you familiar with Scott Pape, the Barefoot Investor?
Yeah, I haven't read a lot of his stuff, but I'm certainly familiar with who he is.
Yeah, awesome guy. So he had like a little, like a blueprint. He called it the blueprint subscription, sort of a bit like the Motley Fool, but actually better. And so he's had all his books, which covered a lot of basic sort of stuff, which his books are fantastic if you're just starting out on your investing journey. But the blueprint was more of a sort of advanced sort of level from that. And within each month, he put out like a newsletter, mainly focusing on ASX listed companies. But he did actually have Berkshire Hathaway in there. But he recommended that back when it was trading at around $80 from memory. So he comes from that same sort of value-based investing sort of mindset as well. And he partnered up with another guy by the name of Mike Kemp, who's actually written a couple of fantastic books as well. One's called Uncommon Sense. I can't remember what the other one is. But yes, but they actually cancelled that subscription last year. June last year, which then in turn forced me to start doing a lot more of my own research to start reading and learning a lot more about companies myself rather than sort of relying more on their recommendations. So that was sort of
yeah,
and they
nice,
give you
because
good write-ups on the businesses.
Yeah, sorry, we're battling that couple of second lag here.
It's
It's been
brutal. Your video hasn't moved for about 10 minutes.
yeah. Oh, this is going to be painful for anyone watching, but I'm sure we'll just have to. Anytime I talk, I'll just talk for a few minutes. Then you can talk for a few minutes, and we won't have the we won't have the little back and forth. There will be all right. All right. Anyhow,
let's go with that.
One of the things I am keen to touch on is I guess getting into more individual companies and that sort of thing. We seem to have a little bit of overlap with kind of some of the companies we've been digging into. I know you've put together some good videos on A2 Milk specifically, and also Alibaba has been like, everyone's been talking about Alibaba, but that's been a really interesting one to follow as well. So how are you finding kind of getting into more individual company research?
Oh, I'm loving it. It's awesome. No, I really do enjoy it, but especially obviously I'm pretty new to the cloning, the 13Fs and all that. Well, not full clone, but I'm only sort of new to that. Probably over the last year and a half, I guess, since the lockdown started. I guess is where I started after watching a fair bit of your content. And you were talking about the 13Fs. That's when I was like, I didn't even realize about the 13Fs. And I was like, man, that's a pretty good
it's
resource
like
for me to tap into
yeah.
there. I watched actually I think you even called that video cheat codes or hacks or something like that. And I was like, man, this is awesome. I didn't even know this was a thing. So I was pretty stoked to get onto that. And now I follow it religiously, like yourself and a lot of other sort of value-based YouTubers as well, because it's such a good space to be digging and learning and trying to research and trying to dig a bit deeper into what they're seeing in these companies. It's such a great resource actually. Or even like I think it was, I don't know if Brad put up a video recently about Monish Pabrai's returns over the last year, and he put a little clip where Monish Pabrai was talking about just setting up a cloning fund. And he was at a university doing a lecture, and he was it was a bit of a yarn with one of the young lads. He said, "Yep, go set up this fund, just cloning fund, just go with it. You'll outperform," sort of thing. Which was, have you seen that clip I'm talking about?
That does ring a few bells, yeah.
It's quite a funny little clip, eh? I haven't actually seen the full length video, but he's like, "David, go set this fund up. You'll outperform." But it was quite interesting. But yeah, definitely. I suppose with researching the companies, I was always sort of pretty focused on the ASX and the NZX because you're obviously a bit more comfortable here because we know it a bit better. But like only over the last sort of year and a half, 2 years, I suppose I've got a bit more comfortable with investing overseas, which just opens you up to so much more opportunity, especially when you start. Now we're looking into China and Japan and the US and everything. It's awesome. There's no sort of boundaries there with how far you, like Brad and Jason from the After Dinner, they're getting into Reese's, which is that's an interesting little company there as well.
Yeah, it's crazy some of the places investing sort of takes you. Like you start out just thinking, I want to put a few dollars to work because I read Robert Kiyosaki saying that I'm going to be going backwards if I don't. And then, next minute you're studying these little like Turkish real estate companies that some US investor who has pretty good returns is talking about. That's a funny old world how that happens.
Yeah. Oh, it's awesome though. It's awesome where it takes you. And then to some of the investors that you sort of start to learn from and just sort of really use as your North Star, I guess. Well, for me, myself, I don't know, you sort of, I never used to have a main sort of strategy or what's the sort of, no sort of framework to go off when it came to investing in the equity markets. Sort of everything was a bit open and I just sort of go with what I thought was a good buy at the time, sort of thing, all off the back of a lot of Scott Pape's recommendations, which was quite well. It worked out quite well. Most of his companies he recommended did pretty well. He was outperforming, I think from memory, he was around 16-17% compounded every year. And he only had that fund, the Blueprint fund open, I think from memory, maybe 5 or 6 years. and then he shut it down the end of last year. But he was beating the market. They were backing that on the ASX, I think, using that as the benchmark from memory.
Yeah, interesting. And so how do you think about sort of balancing the real estate portfolio, which, as I understand it, is sort of still the bulk of your investing focus, with sort of shifting more into the equity markets? Do you feel like that's where you'll kind of tend to move towards over time, or are you still imagining that you'll sort of want to build the real estate portfolio as well?
I definitely feel like I am transitioning more to the equity markets now. But it's awesome to have that the property portfolio there as well, and especially sort of across a couple of different countries as well, sort of minimises the risk there a little bit. And I still definitely am very pro investing in property as well, but yeah, there's definitely a few transactional costs along the way, and it's a lot harder to get in and out of property. And I mean, I just sold a property only a few months back, one in Owakuni, actually. I think we briefly touched on it in our first episode. Yeah. So we did a little subdivision there. I think we even talked about that as well. And we just sold off the back property there, which was nice. It freed up a lot of capital now to. I'm struggling to find places to allocate it, but it definitely freed up a bit of capital. And it paid down. We paid off one of our lodges in Japan as well, so that was nice to have both those now freehold. And then it gave me a bit of extra capital to use it to invest into the equity markets now. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm struggling to find places to put it a little bit. I don't want to be too heavily weighted in Alibaba.
I was about to say if you just put all that money into Alibaba and it's now down 30% or something already.
I have definitely taken a couple of bites of the old the Baba pie, and I do have a few put contracts on it as well, but none of them have come through. They just keep expiring without getting put to me. But I've still got one at the moment actually. But so that's basically that. But yeah, A2, good old A2 Milk. That was one of the first companies that I just finished reading Rule 1, and then I was like, fired up. And I think I was working through Investors as well at the same time. And I was also studying at uni, and I was doing a little accounting unit through UTAS here in Tasmania. They put out a free unit you could study for. Everything was paid for. It was a bit of a stimulus pro for COVID, basically. A postgrad cert in business. So we jumped on that, which was full on for 4 months. But yeah, I was doing an accounting unit with that, so I was starting to learn the ropes a little bit when it comes to accounting, understand what I'm actually looking at. And then, I was got all excited with A2 as it started dropping back more and more, as a lot of investors did. I thought, jumped in. I think it was around maybe their second or third downgrade of earnings. They'd downgrade their earnings, and then that day they dropped like 12 or 15% or something. But so I'm still currently down on my A2 position by around 30%. It's the worst performing stock in my portfolio at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I'm in the same boat there. A2's it's the smallest position I have. It's not a very meaningful amount of money, but I think I'm down around 15% maybe. So I sort of averaged into that. I think I had about half of the purchase at maybe $10 a share, and the other half about $6 or somewhere in the $6 range. So
nice.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Like it was the biggest company in New Zealand for a while there by market cap, which is kind of crazy to think about compared to the Fisher & Paykel Healthcare and Fonterras of the world and so on, especially for like the volume they were doing relative to something like Fonterra. But they've just been growing so fast for such a long time, and it was like the most pristine set of financials you've almost ever seen, like no debt, compounding at 20-something% a year, and now they've stumbled. So it'll be interesting to see how they come out the other side.
Yeah, no, it's like you say, the numbers are off the charts. You're like, this is, and especially just coming off the back of reading Rule 1, I was like, oh, geez, this is seems like a bit of a no-brainer. But it was good though. It was good it was probably quite good actually that it didn't just like ping back up within a week or two, and then I was like, geez, I've cracked that. It's a good sort of reminder that there's a fair bit of skill involved with it all. But no, it's definitely I enjoy reading along with how it's all going, and I'm still fairly confident in it. But we'll just have to wait and see, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how are you sort of thinking about A2 at the moment in terms of what's going on with their business and plans for that position sort of moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be adding to it. I think at the moment I'm currently around 6 or 7% of the portfolio is in A2. So I'm pretty happy with that allocation to it, to be honest. But I don't know. They're sitting on a fair bit of cash. They've got, they've got about 850. But if you back out the Material Valley Milk, I think they're only sitting on around 600 on in cash. So the balance sheet is solid, eh? Like that's phenomenal. And it's just they just need to get that the redistribution back into China back on track, which they seem to be really struggling with. You read a few reports about that, and I don't know, that seems to be the real downfall with them. And like they've almost written off the Daiguo network in China, it seems. Whereas, Bubs just came out the other day, and they've seemed to be back online over there. I mean, they're a lot smaller company, but they've seemed to manage to navigate it a bit better, I feel. But I don't know. It's an interesting one to follow along with, but I don't know. I mean, they're pushing out into America. They're at pretty early stages in America as well, which is, there's a fair bit of room for growth there, I guess. And I think having that Material Valley Milk acquisition was a pretty good move, I feel anyway. Not being so more reliant on Synlait for product. And as they grow, they obviously need more product, so they've still got Synlait there to, buy their product as well. But I don't know. What's your sort of take on it? Where do you want to see it sort of heading? I think, I don't know. I hope once borders open back up. Sorry, you go.
I've got a pretty similar take. So, I mean, I was sort of running through some of the numbers with it initially, and I was like, man, you have to be pretty pessimistic for this not to be at least modestly undervalued. And if you're a little bit optimistic, it started to look kind of really cheap at certain growth rates and cash flow projections and so on.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
That's kind of where I got to with it initially. It is quite uncertain, I guess, at least in the short to medium term, kind of what the what the next maybe year or two looks like for A2. As you say, like the Daigou channel has had a lot of disruption, and it was actually interesting kind of learning about the Daigou channel with Alibaba's Taobao business as well. I can maybe tell you a story about that in a sec, but that's a really difficult channel to run during a pandemic, it turns out. And then you've got this sort of overarching theme of like declining birth rates in China is kind of a point that sort of keeps coming up as well. But then on the other hand, you've got this recent crackdown on like the Chinese for-profit education sector, which, as far as I can tell, seemed to be a massive deterrent from people having more kids because it was so expensive to like educate your kids once they got to a certain age. And like, these stories of kids at young ages doing like crazy hours of schooling. And I don't know. So I think I almost feel like you're, with the distribution side of the business and with sort of the birth rates in China driving obviously demand for A2 infant formula and so on, I feel like you've got to be getting very close, if not past, like the worst possible times for both of those things. So, if A2 can still get through that time with no debt, and I think they still produced like $80 million in cash flow or in earnings even after their massive inventory write-downs and stuff. Like it's not the type of business where there's a large risk of it going to zero, at least as I look at it. Like it's hard to go back. I think it was Peter Lynch has said it's hard to go bankrupt if you got no debt. So that's kind of where A2 is currently sitting. It's just, the big question is sort of what kind of growth rates can they return to once we get 2 or 3 or 5 years kind of down the track.
Yeah, that's it exactly. I mean, like you said earlier, if you slap a bloody, these previous growth rates on it, it looks incredibly cheap. But you've got to rein that in a fair bit. It's definitely, it's still an interesting company. I'm definitely not wanting to sell, that's for sure. But you've definitely got to look out over the next sort of 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and then it looks a lot better. And like sorry, you go.
No, you go.
I've been doing just a bit of market research with my young fella Finn there, because we've complementing him a little bit with some infant formula as well. And it is 100% noticeable how much more he likes A2. Like it's night and day, eh? Like I don't want to be, coming out saying that the other ones are rubbish, but it is quite remarkable how much more he likes that compared to the other products out there available on the market here in Australia. I mean, you're paying a lot more for it. I actually got one on special, which I thought maybe this is part of part of that write down of the some of the stock, the 90 mil or the 100 mil, whatever they're writing down. So that's what got me started. I was like, oh, it's on special. I've got to try it now. And then from there, yeah, we're hooked on it now. Just he definitely he likes it a lot more than the other stuff. The other stuff, you'd be sort of like you're trying to feed him dirt or something. Whereas this one, he's straight onto it and he knocks the whole bottle over pretty comfortably.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear. Keep him on. Keep him on it. Don't wean him too young, Neil.
No, definitely not. You're eating this till you're 16 years old. We've just started feeding them actually, like solids. Well, it's not solids. It's like this bloody rice cereal stuff. But we've been mixing a bit of A2 milk powder into that as well, which he really seems to like. It's a messy job, but he's starting to get the hang of that.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, it's an interesting one. Eh? Like I really can't see myself adding to that position too much unless we get a year or two down the track and it's still kind of beaten up. Maybe I'll think about it as kind of new cash comes in. But this is actually one of the. So I've done like a couple of checklist kind of videos in this last week, and A2 is actually.
Oh, great.
Appreciate it. A2 is actually one of the reasons that a particular point is on that checklist, and it was basically along the lines of don't add a new position just for the sake of diversification, or don't add a new position because it looks interesting when there's something even more interesting in your portfolio. And that's kind of where I'm at with A2. Like I think if things work well, maybe it's a double, maybe a 3x over a slightly longer period of time if it returns to those previous growth rates. But I'm kind of at a point now where I think there's more interesting opportunities where there is a little bit more clarity around what the future looks like as well. I'm not sure how you think about that.
100%. No, definitely very similar thoughts there. But like you said earlier, I think that definitely the worst of it's been behind us now. Like early days pandemic there, it was a bit undecided. It was... But I think, like you said, I think the worst of it now, like Australia's pretty much starting to open up over here now. Vaccine rates are pretty high here, and I think I'm not quite up to speed with what's going on in New Zealand with the vaccine rates there, but everything seems to start to be opening up again, which obviously you would think would improve their distribution over there, but we'll just have to wait and see, I guess.
Yeah, time will tell, as it always does.
Yeah, wait and see. Straight. From the Investors Podcast, Young Investors Podcast.
Young Investors Podcast. I like it. Yep.
Yeah. That's their catch line.
Catchphrase. Yeah. We need to come up with a catchphrase for this podcast, I reckon.
Yeah. They have to put some thought into
it. Yeah. If anyone's got a catchphrase for us, drop that in the comments below, and I'll try and sneak that in. Maybe I'll take 3 or 4 different catchphrases and just weave them into a few episodes and see if anyone picks up on it.
Yeah, definitely.
That could be an idea. What was I going to say before? Oh, around the Daigo channel. So when I was first looking into Alibaba, I have a friend who lived and worked in China for a little while and did actually like market research on different e-commerce platforms in China for a New Zealand company who was looking to export products there. And one of the really like just things that blew my mind about the whole Daigo channel, which if anyone doesn't know, it's basically like a reseller. So someone goes to Australia, for example, and buys a whole bunch of A2 milk product and then sends that back to China, and they make a little business kind of out of that, which is great for A2 because it means that they don't have to build up that kind of final part of the supply chain, I guess. But it's shown that it does make them a little bit fragile in some places. Or in some situations, I guess.
Sure.
So it was really interesting. She was actually telling me about Daigo resellers based in China, and I forget where they were flying to, but they'd basically every single week fly out and there's certain products that there's a lot of tariffs on, like getting those products into China. And this example specifically
Yeah,
was with a lot of like well-known makeup brands that people were buying on Taobao. So
right.
these people would fly overseas for like a day trip or a weekend trip, literally like fill suitcases with makeup from these places, and then effectively they'd get to the airport, and she just said it was crazy. Like people were taking makeup out of the boxes and throwing out the boxes to make more space in their suitcase so they could fit more makeup like in their suitcase and in their carry-on luggage, and shove it in overheads and stuff, all to take back to China to like run their e-commerce business on Taobao.
To resell.
Yeah, it's
Right.
nuts.
Jesus.
And presumably similar things are
That's
happening with
crazy.
A2. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah,
But
that's crazy. I think sorry, the Treasury Wine Estates got stuck with their tariffs on their red wine at one point. Maybe it
mhm.
was late last year, early this year. They same thing. All of a sudden, China said tariffs have gone up through the roof, which just crushed them, eh? So yeah, I understand about those high tariffs that they seem to just bring in willy nilly.
Yeah, that's also an interesting aspect of A2 that, well, I guess if you've got the Daigo channel, it doesn't really matter. But if you're trying to import product to or send product to China directly, that could definitely be a challenge. And especially when you're quite reliant. Well, this isn't just A2. This is basically all of New Zealand's agricultural sector is quite reliant on China. So if we have
Yeah,
big tariffs slapped on, milk or meat or whatever,
whatever it may
that
be.
could cripple an industry for sure.
Oh, absolutely, eh? Which is it's, but they've partnered up with the China, what was it, husbandry with the 25% owner in the Mataura Valley Milk as well. So
Mhm.
A2 owns 75%, and then I think yeah, one of their partners over there owns the 25%. So that's nice. They've sort of got a fairly good relationship there, you'd see. But I don't know. I
Mhm.
think, like they say, they can slap tariffs on things willy nilly if they feel like they want to.
Yeah, it's challenging. You haven't had your young fella try out any of the newer A2 brands that are starting to emerge at all.
No, yeah, he's just about to jump up because he's 5 months now,
Hmm.
and then when it hits 6 months, then we put him on to the next level. Because in those first 6 months, you've got to keep him on the sort of the weak stuff, I guess. Don't give him full cream or whatever it is. I don't know. So, and that's another reason why we didn't actually get the A2 stuff, because the little supermarket here where we live didn't actually stock the one that's for 0 to 6, so they only
Yeah.
stocked the 6 to 12. But no, we haven't tried. What other stuff have they got on offer? Like other milk products, is it, or what is, or is it more like foods based stuff?
Yeah, well, there's I mean, there seems to be like one of the other kind of beer cases with A2 is that there seems to be other competing brands. Like A2 milk is not something. I mean, A2 obviously has their brand and they have various trademarks and things, but
Mm,
it's not like they have ownership over all cows that produce an A2 protein. Like it's very common in other parts of the
no.
world as well. So you've got brands
Mm,
like, and big brands like Nestle, for example, starting to come out with
mm,
A2 products in various parts of the world. So it'd be interesting to see how that
yeah,
plays out. I mean, there was rumors only a few weeks ago that potentially Nestle might even look to
I
buy
was
the
looking
A2
at
milk
buying.
company, which would be kind of
Yeah,
interesting as well. But I sort of wonder
yeah.
whether that maybe puts some downward pressure on product pricing over time.
Yeah, they might rein it back in, because at the moment it is the most expensive milk on the shelf. Here in Australia, it is for just the little punnet, which is like a month's worth, let's say, and that's not even full time. Like my wife still breastfeeds as well. Yeah, that's like $39
Hmm.
Australian for that for a punnet, which is and then if you compare that to the other brands, they're around half that price, give or take.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, they definitely got the superior pricing on it. That's for sure.
yeah. That sounds like me buying Gillette razors the other day for Movember. That stings the
Yeah, I had to
wallet.
go buy some too. Oh, mate, I only got one razor and one head, because I haven't been clean shaven for, I couldn't even tell you, maybe 5 years or something. I think since the last time I did Movember, maybe. So yeah, I had to go buy some shaving foam and some and a new razor.
Yeah, well, if hopefully A2 milk is like our, how like Warren Buffett had his big investment in Gillette, which he called one of the inevitables, and worked very well before it got acquired by Procter and Gamble. I think hopefully
Yep.
that's us. A2 got that
For
pricing
A2.
power.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
we'll have to
Definitely.
see.
That's it. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. I want to change tack a little bit because I know there's one other topic that we were talking about a little bit before we hit record on this that you're very passionate about, and you said I might have to hold you back because if I ask you a question about it, that might be the full episode. So I've held off for half an hour or so. We spoke about this a little bit in the last episode, but it'd be interesting to get an update and kind of how you're thinking about it. But I know you're super into, I guess, travel in general by the sounds of it, but
Yep.
but snowboarding in particular. And last time we talked about you guys buying a place in Japan. Do you want to tell us what you're up to there?
Yeah, for sure, man. Definitely, yeah, definitely keen on the winters and snowboarding. Like it is definitely an obsession. Yeah, definitely, and it's cool. Like prior to the pandemic, we've sort of managed to sort of shape our life around being in the mountains for a part of the year, which is just like a dream come true. Like it's so cool. But yeah, we're only fairly new to it. We only bought the lodge in 2018, the first our little mountain hut, it's called, which is just a small 10 guest rooms, and then we have a couple of staff rooms, and then another little Harry Potter cupboard where we hide another the staff up there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was awesome. We had a great season, like coming into the pandemic, actually. That season was our best season yet. Like we were chock-a-block, full booked up till about sort of end of Feb, early March, and then the pandemic was starting to run a bit. We didn't, to be honest, mate, we were pretty oblivious to the whole pandemic. We were over there just riding every day, and had a few guests coming and going, and we had a few people actually leaving Tokyo to get out of Tokyo for because of the pandemic, and they come to stay with the lodge for us for like a month, which was awesome. We had a couple of nice families, really nice Taiwanese family with mum, dad, and the two kids, which was a nice little vibe actually, rather than just having heaps of drunk Aussies running around. So it was a nice way to wrap up the season. And then yeah, we left there. It was end of March last year. I think it was March 27th, maybe from memory.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, just been back in Tassie pretty much since then, and we've been pretty busy still though. I mean, yeah, the business obviously in Japan has pretty much come to a screaming halt. There's no way to pivot, around this, as all our guests are predominantly Australians and Kiwis and Westerners generally. We maybe you could say 2, 3, 5% at the most local domestic sort of trade. And we actually have to be there to sort of help run it. This last season just gone in Japan, we actually did have a few friends and other previous guests that have stayed with us actually in Japan, so we sort of lent it out to them just to use. It's just to keep the place warm and ticking over. Because the issue is you get a lot of snow there. Like they average around 15 meters a season in Miyako where we are. You need to keep the lodge warm so the roof, all the snow slides off the roof and whatnot, and all the pipes start freezing up. So it's kind of a bit of a win-win to still have people in there, and we're not making any money off it really. But yeah, it just keeps the place sort of ticking over. And then we actually bought another little lodge last year, actually in the middle of in the heart of the pandemic. Yeah, we were doubling down. It was just too good an opportunity to pass up. We thought tourism's booming at the moment. Let's double down on this, which hasn't done much. We actually haven't even seen it in person, so that was a good move. But it's in a fantastic location. So on Miyako, we've got 4 different main sort of commercial ski areas, and then there's a small sort of club field, let's say, on the other far end of the Miyako mountain. And this is on the best ski area, or in my opinion, it's the best ski area of all 4. And it's ski back to the door, ski down to the lift. Like it's a fantastic location. Wow. So it's a smaller lodge. It's only a 7 guest rooms and then like another little staff room. But there's another sweet little log cabin out back, which we're going to use as our sort of living quarters, especially now with Finn, the young bloke, sort of changes things a little bit over there. We'll don't know if we'll be living at the Backpackers. That's quite a lively sort of scene in the evening sometimes. So it'll be nice to sort of retreat from there to a nice little cozy little log cabin. So that's going to be our little quarters, I think, moving forward. Probably won't be much happening this season over there due to, I think Japan still hasn't opened up yet to Australians. We're in the process actually of trying to get our visas, which has been a right headache, like proper pain in the ass. We've been trying to get our business manager's visa. We have a company set up over there, and essentially we're sponsoring ourselves so we can stay there for longer than the 3 months on the tourist visa. But it's quite hard to get that visa over the line. But that's just a very sort of basic overview of what's sort of happening over there. Hopefully next season things have picked back up, and we've guns are blazing full steam ahead, because I'm definitely itching to get things fired back up over there again. And we're sort of expanding, running like a bit of a small sort of ski school as well, myself and my wife, and then a few of the other people that we have helping us out at the lodge, the other staff. They're instructors as well, which is awesome. So a lot of our guests, they're sort of beginner to intermediate, so they quite like having that freedom to just go up for the hill, take out for a couple of hours, and we charge it slightly cheaper than the ski schools. So it's a good little in-house little ski school. And we just bought a heap of snowboards as well. Actually, we're going to start up a little rental fleet of about 20 odd Never Summer snowboards, which are quite a high level, high performance sort of snowboard as well, which is, we're partnered up with the Never Summer rep over there, which was a nice little partnership as well.
Yeah, cool. Mate, you've got 100 different things on the go, haven't you?
And then, like I was saying earlier, and then you throw Finn in the mix, which is absolutely amazing. I love being a dad. It's honestly the best job I've ever had. But man, I thought I was busy before Finn. Finn is just new level of busy. Good busy though. It's a great busy. Like, he's a good kid. He's he's a pleasure to have around. He's a nice, happy sort of disposition to him. He's a nice, happy little chap. But yeah, it is nice when he goes to bed at night, though.
Yeah. I can imagine. Well, we've got him as our. Well, I'm just going to include myself in this, but we've got him as our unpaid A2 analyst as well. So that's a nice bonus.
He is. Yeah.
So how'd you go from? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. I said he's on the team.
Yeah, for sure. So how'd you go from sort of traveling snowboarding to like making the decision to actually buy a place or a couple of lodges over in Japan?
Well, we've managed backpackers in the past. Actually, in Japan, or sort of sub-managed, let's say. We were sort of looking after the backpacker side of one of the lodges in Niseko, which is in the northern part of Japan, in Hokkaido, the northern island, which was awesome. We were working for an amazing family up there. She was Japanese and her partner was Australian. They had a couple of really, really lovely little girls as well, which are awesome just to hang around. But we sort of looked after the backpackers in Snowclared, and my wife, and there was 4 of us in total, keeping up with the day-to-day sort of activities of running a lodge. And their lodge actually come up for sale. They've sold it now, but and I was like, man, I would love to buy this. Even because we've done a few seasons there, we get a lot of returning guests. So a lot of the guests sort of know, they sort of get to know you quite well, which is the same thing. It's happening with our lodge where we are as well. We've had a lot of guests that stayed with us in Niseko have stayed with us in Miyako as well, which is real nice. It's cool. Really, really some good people, and everyone sort of just comes together and has that love for the mountains and the snow and everything. It's a good place to be, and I'm really looking forward to raising Finn over there. Like, it's a little bugger. He doesn't know how good he's got it. Like, snowboarding in Japan in the winters, like, oh man. I'm really, really looking forward to that sort of next little chapter there, having him in the front pack and then just getting him on a little board and stuff. So that's going to be super exciting. But yeah, anyway, back to the question. So I went off tangent a bit there. I don't know. It was always sort of, I did my first season, I think it was 2010 in Gunma, which is in the main island of Japan. And I was talking to a few of the other lads there, actually Kiwi lads that have set up a business over there, and they live full time in Japan now, mainly rafting and canyoning and adventure sort of based stuff like New Zealand's famous for. And they were saying just how cheap property was, and from there it was sort of planted that seed, and from there it sort of, and then it was only recently over the last, like I said, I think it was June 2018, we bought the first lodge, which was incredibly cheap. But there is still a lot of interest in the area though, Like, it's a lot of the lodges actually in Miyoko are owned by Australians and Kiwis and Americans and whatnot as well. There's quite a few that like to buy the property there, especially in Niseko and Hakuba are the main two sort of hotspots in Japan for foreign ownership. And then Miyoko's sort of third on the list, sort of it's the up and coming sort of thing. So property's still quite cheap there. Whereas if you compare it to Hakuba and Niseko, you're paying sort of Queenstown prices, let's say, for property that close to ski areas, whereas Miyoko's a fraction of that. So it's cool to be at the sort of the bottom level of that. Like, you can sort of, there's still a lot of room for growth and, you can carve a little niche out. And it's a great little town. Like there's some of the other lodge owners and all that. We've got quite a cool little network of us over there that all work out to, we all help each other out. And because some of the things are quite a headache to sort of navigate your way through, obviously with the language barrier, and their systems and procedures is quite challenging at times as well. So it's awesome to sort of bounce ideas off other people and how did you do this and who do you use for that, and I need to get this guy to certify me for this and all this sort of stuff. So it's awesome that we've kind of got that little group of us over there that sort of all working. Obviously we're in competition as well, but it's there's plenty of business when everything's open. It's flat chat, like everyone's booked sort of thing. There's no sort of fighting for business sort of thing or anything like that. So
yeah. So I got a couple of initial questions. Like I guess if I was going to I must say I've never had the thought to maybe look at buying a ski lodge in Japan run through my head, but I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes. So I guess a few like initial questions.
Sure, far away.
Like what does it look like with I guess what's the process of like buying a house or buying a lodge as like a foreigner in Japan? Like what's setting up a business and taxes and employees, what's all that sort of stuff look like over in Japan? Is it easy enough to set up, or are there language barriers and other headaches and other kind of considerations as well?
Yeah, there's definitely that was the biggest challenge, was all of what you've just said. The easy part, actually buying the lodge, piece of cake, no dramas. Like that was seamless, really. Like that was the most easiest part of the whole deal, buying the lodge. And saying that they're not just listed on realestate.co.nz or realestate.com.au sort of thing. You kind of need to be on the ground and sort of working in, because the locals are very old school. They sort of have their real estate agent they deal with, and they just sort of put faith and trust in him that he's going to sell the property for them, sort of thing. So they don't really list it on any website or anything like that. A lot of it's sort of word of mouth and all that sort of thing. So it was only by sheer luck that we come across the lodge, actually, that first one, which we bought off a Japanese guy. He was the original owner. He built it in 89. It's on a good size section too. It's like 2,100 square. So it's actually on two different titles. But he literally bought this land, built the lodge at the worst possible time. Like, Japan was still at the end of their boom sort of thing. And then he held on to it for like the next 30 years, let's say. And now he's probably selling it at a time when, Miyoko is actually finally starting to pick back up again. So yeah, it's an old lodge. Like I said, it's 30 years old, but it's Western sort of style as well. It's not very Japanese style, which is awesome. Like all the toilets are Western style, and they're not the traditional sort of Japanese sort of squat toilets or anything like that. And it's got a nice big open space and a couple of split levels with a lounge and whatnot. So it's pretty cool. Nice sort of social space at the end of the day to hang out. But yeah, with regards to like all the taxes and the company and everything, we've established a company over there as well, which was the best way to go for buying vehicles and forth, and then visas as well. Now we're in the process of trying to get that business manager's visa. You can oversee operations without a visa, but the visa just makes things a lot easier. But yeah, it's quite a hard job. And now a lot of our friends have actually lost their visa, because you only get a 1-year visa. And they haven't been able to get back because of the lockdowns and everything. So they've actually they've lost their visa. So they're in the process of trying to get their visa again. That's a real headache, definitely. And it's just the banking as well. The banking is definitely quite a problem area. They're not up to date with internet banking. Is nowhere near as good as what we have here in Australia and New Zealand, which makes it quite challenging, especially when you're accepting payments from Australia and New Zealand or wherever it may be. So yeah, that's definitely challenging. But there's workarounds. You can get around a lot of that. But Yeah. What was the other question? There was just basically what's the challenges there? Owning the property. So
Yeah.
anyone can own the property freehold. Freehold. There's no restrictions on ownership. So it's just like buying
Hmm.
a property in Australia, New Zealand, or anything like that, which is awesome. So that there's that. There's no anything where we have to marry Japanese or be 50% owner with Japanese or anything like that. So
Yeah.
that's a nice feature.
Yeah. Cool. And
Which is
is
not
it
many
is it
countries in Asia. Sorry.
Uh, sorry, yeah, finish that thought, but I'll ask you a question before we get the 2 second lag again. Is it
Yeah,
something you
straight away.
is it something that you see yourself like scaling up over time? Like, I mean, is it even possible to have like multiple lodges operating, or is it kind of like part business, part something you do for fun, lifestyle kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a good question, mate. That's a solid question. It's definitely scalable. There is another guy, Australian guy, Quinton Nolan. He owns a company called Liquid Snow. He brought a lodge, I'd like to say maybe 8, 9, 10 years ago, let's say, in Huckabah. Now he owns, I couldn't even tell you, probably half a Huckabah, basically. And he's just ridden that wave up as more popularity and buying lodges. His property's gone up, tripled, quadrupled in value, sort of thing, even more so. Um, and he actually owns a couple of properties in Miyako as well. So he's definitely one guy that has scaled up quite a large business now, and he's probably the one of the biggest players in Japan for bringing in Westerners to Japan. And he's also partnered up with another company called Huckabah Real Estate Group, which they tear down old Japanese buildings and develop nice condominiums and Western style sort of buildings. So he's one example of definitely, and he's done a few podcasts as well, actually, which I've listened to. But yeah, he's definitely, for us though, I don't know, like for me, if I was left to go to my devices and wasn't getting rained on by my wife sometimes, I probably would start trying to scale things up a bit. But I don't know. It's a fine line. You don't want to get yourself that flat out over there that you can't enjoy it as well. Like I love snowboarding. That was the main sort of one of the main drivers. So was that I can still snowboard a lot, and I don't like the idea of not doing that. And being stressed because
Yeah.
we've got half a dozen lodges and there's a lot of moving parts and something breaks or staffing issues. Staffing's quite an issue. We've been lucky. We've had amazing staff, which has been awesome. But a lot of people have dramas with the staffing because they're only there for 2, 3 months of the year, and a lot of sort of transit sort of crew, and they're good for a month or two, and then I don't know. So that's an issue. So ideally, we were quite lucky. We've had staff that come back year after year, but now with the last couple of years, everyone's sort of moving on with their life, so we may have to start from scratch, unfortunately. But and then we sort of want to get to a point where we're not so involved with it on, like both me and my wife are pretty flat out throughout the winter every day. We're up changing beds and making breakfast and dropping guests off and just trying to give guests the best possible stay they can have as well. Like we become quite friendly with our guests. Like when they leave, it's like a mate almost. So kind of sort of bring that in and encourage the staff to be super friendly and just create that sort of nice atmosphere around the lodge where everyone just sort of catches up at the end of the day and has a yarn and a beer and ideally goes to bed at a reasonable hour and doesn't carry on to the wee hours. Because I'm up at 6 a.m. cooking brekkie.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of work involved with running a lodge as well, like just snow clearing and then you've got trying to keep on top of your social media as well as a chore in itself. But it's all good fun though. Like it's definitely it's one of those things that I love doing it. Like it is truly it's a dream come true. Even if some days your snowblower breaks down and there's a storm rolling in and you're under the pump and you've got guests coming in and I don't know. It's all part of it.
Yeah. Still better than sitting in an office, you reckon?
Oh, it's not even comparable. Like you compare it to, I mean, I do a bit of FIFO work and oil and gas sort of stuff, and I'm just out there like, what am I doing? But yeah, compare it to that, and it's just, it's so good. Yeah, I love it. And it's a good crew. Like everyone that comes and stays with us is like, everyone's on holiday, everyone's in good mood. Like it's a nice environment to be in and around. I really enjoy it. And then we've partnered up with another local charity called POW, Protect Our Winters. So we end up building like a little terrain park alongside our lodge. Just I'm out there with the snowblower, like shaping up jumps and rails and kickers and things. And then we run like a little rail jam competition on that, and we give away a couple of snowboards, and it's a nice little thing that everyone sort of rallies around in the community. And it's like the first season we had a couple of hundred, and the season 2020 we had maybe 250, 300 people just all get together and throw down some little tricks and things on the jump, and it's a nice fun evening. And now we've partnered the charity up with that as well. It's sort of a nice little way to promote power as well.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Are you able to speak about your oil and gas work at all and what you're up to there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just a shit kicker out there. I mean, I'm bloody utility or roustabout roughneck sort of, the bottom of the barrel sort of stuff, which is still great money. Like it blows me away actually how good the money is, considering especially I've done both. I've done working inside the actual the accommodation part of the rig or the vessel, whatever it may be on, which is easy. You're in the aircon, it's nice. You're making beds, doing laundry, helping out in the kitchen. But then outside, if you're working on the drill floor or running around after the crane, obviously that's quite demanding, especially in the heat. A lot of the rigs are all off WA, off the Western Shelf up there, and then all off north of Darwin, and it's like 40 degrees, 45 degrees, and you're in full coveys, steel caps, and everyone's like hiding under like bits of steel and stuff to try and get a bit of shade. It's just a dirty, grimy, sweaty, can be dangerous if the risks aren't managed well. And if you've got a good crew, then it's all good. But if you've got guys near the end of the hitch, I mean, you're doing 4 weeks out there usually, 4 to 5 weeks, which is a pretty long hitch, 12-hour days. And depending on the rig, it can be pretty noisy, so you're not really getting great night's sleep. Well, it's not like I'm getting a great night's sleep now with Finn either, but it's definitely something we're trying to phase out. Actually, it's not something I really want to keep doing, to be honest. And I thought I'd done it. Actually, I thought that's it, I'm done with it, and then COVID. So yeah, that was a bit of a spanner in the works. But it's nice to still have the freedom to go back and pick up the odd swing, like I've done. I've actually just got back from this hitch only last week. I was off Darwin for, how's this? So I did 1 week's quarantine before going out to the rig, did 1 week's work on the rig, and then I did 2 weeks quarantine coming back. So it was 1 week's work, 3 weeks quarantine, all paid though. So it was awesome for me, and it was good. I got some time to really drill down on a few things. Actually, I did a few courses through Coursera. Have you heard of Coursera?
No.
The online. It's awesome, eh? It's a shout out to Coursera. Just an online education platform, essentially. But you get access to some of the best professors out of the US. I did a financial markets and basic introduction to financial markets where they touch on bonds and a series of different things. But they had Robert Schiller, I think was his name, was one of the main sort of presenters in the course. And he's really good to listen to. And it's all nice video form content and, little quizzes and little things along the way and everything. And it was all totally free. I was like, this is phenomenal. Yeah, I punched out I think it was a 7 or 8 week course in like a week and a half. I was just doing that every day. So that was in my little room in quarantine. So that was pretty cool.
It was online
nice,
courses and making YouTube videos in quarantine.
Yeah, I was getting paid to do it. I was like, this is what a pleasure. So no, that was probably the easiest offshore gig I've ever had. I was like, mate, this is easy money. But it's not usually like that.
Yeah, fair enough. So it's something you do for sort of like, do you do sort of like a couple of these 4 week stints a year or?
Exactly. Yeah, but now with Finn, I miss him so much. That was the hardest part, was being away from him. Obviously my wife as well, but being away from Finn is tough. So and it's not a place for raising a family. Like guys do it and they miss it. Some guys seem to manage it quite well, but a lot of guys struggle with that aspect of it. Which is tough. Like you kind of end up living a split sort of life. You're away there for 1 month and then you're back. But I mean, you're back usually it's even time, so you're back at home for 1 month as well. But yeah, it's definitely challenging. So I've only done 2 swings this year. I did this one and then I did one back in February actually. But we'll see. I'm trying to knock it back so I don't have to do it. We do a few other little things where we are here in Tasmania. I'm actually painting a house tomorrow. Me and my wife we've been painting a few houses recently, so that's another little side thing we do as well.
Yeah, man, you've got so much going on. I was telling my girlfriend before we caught up to record this podcast, and I was saying, I'm talking to Neil, the Adventurous Investor on YouTube, and he's like, she was like, is that the one that has the ski lodge in Japan, or the one in Tasmania, or the one that has the real estate in Aokani? Which, and I was like, it's all the
same one. Yeah. No, it's yeah. Definitely. It's a bit of a downfall sometimes, though. You spread yourself a bit thin.
Mhm.
But no, I like being busy, but at the moment it seems like they're definitely very busy.
Yeah.
But no, it's good. And like yourself, man, like you must be flat out with juggling work and the YouTube channel and the podcast and punch card and and your strongman as well. Like, geez, you must be running a pretty heavy schedule as well.
Yeah, I really wish I was like running the Buffett clear calendar, but I'm definitely not. But I mean, I work full-time job. It's actually a little easier at the moment keeping up with YouTube because we're in lockdown. So there's not too much else to kind of do on the weekends and that sort of thing. But it can get a bit hectic. But I guess I've sort of got the goal in mind, I suppose, of eventually, trying to grow YouTube to the point where it's a full-time gig. So, you've got a little bit of motivation to kind of keep you going. So that definitely helps. But I enjoy it. Like it's
for sure.
It's fun.
It is. It really is fun. I mean, I love it as well. I mean, I'm nowhere near at your level or any of these other sort of YouTubers out there. But like we said earlier, just chatting to other guys like yourself, or there's a few others that I catch up with on YouTube from time to time as well. Like it's awesome. Like I wouldn't know these people without YouTube, so I really enjoy that aspect of it. It's a great part of it, and that'd be awesome, man. If you could go full time, I bet that's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's it's probably got a double or maybe a couple of doubles away from being a genuine full-time gig, but I guess we're trying to compound it, right? So we're only when I started with one subscriber, we were a double away from 2 and a double away from 4, and now we're only a couple more doubles to go. Yeah. That's the idea.
Yeah, that's it, man. That's awesome.
It's fun. It's funny how that plays out, though. Like it takes so long to get anything kind of starting to snowball, and then it kind of gets a life of its own and gets some momentum after a while. Is that kind of how you found
Absolutely. it? Yeah, for sure. Like most of my videos don't get thousands of views or anything, but I've had a few that are starting to pick up a few views now. It's funny. One of your videos just got recommended only recently, and it was one of your older videos from maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, and you had a whiteboard up behind you, and halfway through the video, you could see the whiteboard was like starting to fall.
It falls off the wall.
It falls off the wall. It was awesome content. Like it was still great, but and then you're like, the whiteboard literally fell off the wall.
Man, I remember that.
Laugh at that,
Yeah, I remember that. So some of those, I go back and watch some of those older videos, and they're pretty cringeworthy. I think I was like, it's because when I first got into watching sort of finance YouTube myself, I'd been watching like Jeremy from Financial Education, who had the whiteboard videos.
Yeah.
I thought I'd do the same thing. Seemed like a reasonable idea, but I bought a whiteboard that was so small and like thin little markers that you can barely read it. And I'm like filming. I think at that time I was filming with the front-facing camera on my iPhone and like had it stacked up on some boxes or something. So you got like weird angles. I don't know if I even had a microphone. And it's just terrible looking back now. But you got to start somewhere.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, I know. I'm sure every YouTuber goes through that. Well, majority would, I'd imagine. I think I did the same. I had my phone stacked up on the ironing board, and it was like the most rugged setup you've ever seen. Yeah, definitely don't go back and watch any of my early videos. They are pretty rough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I even go back like 6 months, and I'm like, man, I'm talking so fast. Like, what? Settle down,
Yeah.
Tom. What are you What are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah. I think. Do you think that's a Kiwi problem that we speak too quick, or Aussies, Kiwis that we do generally speak quite quick?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I just drink too much coffee.
Yeah, right. That's what does it, eh?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I do find that New Zealanders have like a very, and I'm really guilty of this, have a very like non-committal way of speaking. Like we say, um, uh, like I'm doing it now. Like we say, it's kind of like this, or it's like a little bit like we don't want to
Mm.
just concisely say something.
Fully
We're
say
like, oh
something.
yeah, this is sort of going on, and we kind of
Yeah.
like the volume sort of tapers off towards the end of a sentence is kind of like how Kiwis speak and that sort of thing as well. So I've tried to,
Yep.
yeah, I guess get a little bit better with the communication style over time, hopefully. But it's hard to iron out 20 years of living in New Zealand
Oh,
or whatever.
it's a shock. Yeah. I get a few people on my videos actually saying, mate, just good, but just slow down. Like your flat chat. I'm like, yeah, yeah, right, yeah. And then the next video, I'm like, yeah, yeah. I'm like, yeah, that's it. I'm going to try and slow it down for this one. And then I've clicked record and I'm away to the races.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, that's one of the things, I guess.
yeah, it's a
Yeah,
funny one. Well, I've got one more topic I want to chat to you about because we've
yeah,
covered
right.
plenty, but I think in the style of Neil, we should talk about lots of stuff. So we the other one
The
I'm keen
same
to cover,
style
and
as
this
the channel.
yeah, for sure.
I think it might
It's
be
like
different actually.
well, it's like you're concentrated in the portfolio and real estate, but there's sort of lots of other stuff that's kind of interesting to talk about, I guess, which is cool. It's like
Yeah,
you
yeah,
expand into new areas because if you like turn over lots of rocks, you eventually find something that's actually pretty interesting, and like you can kind of go full hog into that. I reckon. So I think it's good.
yeah.
I think it's good. But that last topic, and this is actually one that you brought up, which is one that's kind of been floating around like value investing circles for a few years actually at this point, but it's one I've never really sunk my teeth into is Micron technology. Like it's a
Mm,
big holding of Monish Pabrais. I think Guy Spear has a small position. I think it's Lilu's biggest US position. He's got
yep.
I think he's got a Chinese bank that's bigger, and BYD I think is quite a bit bigger, but it's a big position for him as well. Um, yeah, what
And
have you
David
been
Tepper
digging
too.
into with Micron
David
recently?
David Tepper has a pretty good position in it. I think may be
Hmm.
the biggest in his portfolio as well. Look, I've only really started looking at it the last sort of week or two. Haven't really gone too deep on it. But yeah, like you said, it's definitely interesting. And even you just have a high level look at the fundamentals of it, you're like, phew. Um, yeah, and then obviously you look at the lineup of people that own it. Is also you're like, yeah, right. Like you just rattled off all the names that definitely own it. And a lot of them have been buying, when it was sort of in the 70, 80, 90 sort of dollar range. I've been digging over a few, the most recent sort of 13F to see what people have been doing with it. Um, a few people have been trimming a little bit, but yeah, that's not sort of neither here nor there really. They're not fully selling out of it from what I could see. Um, yeah, but it's one of those things. Like we were sort of chatting before the we push record was. It's definitely right out of my circle of competence. The old the Micron. Um, but what I like to do, I don't know if you do this with either, but I generally find if I buy it, even if it's only a couple of shares or like 3 or 4, 5, 10, whatever it may be, all of a sudden I start wanting to do a lot more research in it. Like I'd initially find a company, yeah, that looks good, and you spend a week or two looking over it or whatever. And then I'll buy like a very small position in it just to sort of start. I don't know, something shifts within my head that I'm like, right, I've got to start digging in a bit more now to see if I want to build this out or sell it. Generally, I don't, though. I don't sell it. I usually become more and more confident with it, which is what I did with Alibaba actually. Early days, once we learned Charlie was buying it, and I sort of, geez, I've got no idea what's going on over there. But then as you start reading, and I listened to the Alibaba, the house that Jack Ma built, the book that you recommended actually, through Audible, which was awesome. And from there, and then watching all the other YouTubers create content around it and reading over it as you do. Um, you become more and more comfortable with investing in China and then investing into Alibaba, and then you start looking at JD.com, and then you start looking at Taobao. Oh, I mean, it's not Taobao, Pinduoduo, and start. I don't know. It's one of those ones though. Like where do you draw the line on the circle of competence? Like where do you go? No, it's out of my circle. I'm not touching it. Or where do you say, oh, I could probably get my head around this eventually, sort of thing. I don't know. That's something I'm sort of learning at the moment, I guess, trying to expand on the circle a little bit. And as you grow as an investor, I guess that circle becomes bigger. But if you want it to, I mean, you could just niche down and focus. Like you had Hamish on recently, like he seems very focused on just, those basic businesses that he has a really good understanding of, where he's not interested in, Alibaba, which is fine. But yeah, I don't know. How about yourself, man? What's your sort of take on Micron and expanding on the circle of competence, if you will?
Yeah. Well, I first took like a. So I've tried to build this habit of, which is intentional, but I've tried to build this habit of like analyzing a business very quickly, and if I don't think I can get it in my circle or the numbers don't look interesting or whatever, I just discard it. And that's kind of what I initially did with
Yep.
Micron. But having heard Brad talk about it a little bit has helped, like actually laying out what the investment thesis is. I've found with businesses like Alibaba, for example, it seems really complicated on the surface of things, but once you kind of get into the weeds a little bit, you come out the other side of that research, having simplified it down a little bit and kind of getting the main, at least directionally, kind of a good understanding of what's going on. So I wonder if that's
Absolutely.
really where I need to go next with Micron. Like the thesis seems more straightforward kind of the more I look into it. I don't think I'm ever going to understand the technology of DRAM chips better than
the
a bunch of
NRAM and
other
the DRAM
people.
and
Yeah. But
for
I
sure.
think maybe I can get there on kind of the underlying thesis of the business. Like it's an industry that's growing very fast. There's only 3 big players. Micron's the only one in the West, and they're buying back shares, kind of trading at a multiple like they're a commodity business, and the core thesis is they're not really a commodity business anymore because lots of demand and the supply side of the equation's kind of rationalized a lot. So I think it's probably one that warrants more attention, but you do have to be careful. Like we were talking a bit before this with Micron, I think I could get there on all the things we've just discussed or all the things I just mentioned, but then I see articles like last week, for example, out of Alibaba saying Alibaba have just developed this chip. But then I've got the Micron bulls telling me that China's 3 years behind the US, and I don't quite know how to get my head around that part of the equation. That's probably the area I would struggle with the most.
Yep. Yeah. Have you looked on Value Investors about it yet? I haven't looked on there to see if they've got any articles on it. I was meaning to dig into that, but haven't had the time to see if there must be
I
some
was
write-ups on
reading
there. Must be heaps.
Yeah, there's a few from various years. The latest one I think is April 2020, which discusses kind of a lot of the things that I just mentioned. But the free cash flow that kind of drops out the other side of Micron, I've seen some fairly wide-ranging estimates on that. So that's one that's hard to nail down because it's a business that has been so volatile. It's kind of like where do margins kind of normalize is a bit of a hard one to kind of figure out. So I don't know. I'll do more digging on it.
It seems to be the nature of the industry a little bit, like that cyclicality of it, where it seems to drop back a bit. But if you look at Micron, it generally still, even though the peaks and troughs, it is still generally going up over time, the demand for the chips. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but it's definitely worth definitely reading up on for sure. That's I did actually put some put options on it the other day, but they've already expired. Which would have given me a little position in it if that did get actioned. But that's as far as I've really got with buying into Micron at this stage. I'd probably like to see it come back probably a little bit more. I'll have to check out some of Brad's videos. I think I've watched one of his where because he's made a few on it, on Micron, I think, from memory, from maybe a year ago.
Micron's his biggest position. He had a video that probably within the last month, it's about 20 or 30 minutes long, where he goes through a few write-ups and presentations on Micron. So those would be worth checking out.
Right. I'll definitely have to check that out, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for
Yeah, I
sure.
watched, like I mentioned earlier, Justin's on J Money, which is another fantastic YouTuber as well. He did a good little write up on it as well, which I highly recommend. He's done a few videos on it, and he is a shareholder of Micron as well.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely worth
Yeah,
sort
okay.
of digging into.
Well, that's one for the watch list. One to do some
Yeah,
digging
for
on. If
sure.
anyone,
I'll
if
be
anyone in the
yeah.
Yeah, if anyone in the comment section of this podcast episode, or if you're listening on audio form, jump over to YouTube and leave us a comment if you know any good places to go research Micron.
Absolutely.
But Neil, I know you need to run. We've kind of come up on time, so I had better let you go. But I really appreciate you chatting with me. It's always good to get you on the podcast, and I'm hoping to kind of get a
Oh, no,
few
it's
of the
all,
guys in the Movember team on the podcast this month, so we can hopefully continue kind of pushing that boat and raise some good money for the Movember Foundation. So I appreciate you being guest number one. Unfortunately, that means since you're early in the month, we don't have much of a moustache to show off, but maybe on some of these
they'll come, mate, they'll
live
come.
streams that'll come through.
Yeah. When is that
Just
first live stream? That live stream's this weekend, isn't it? Saturday, is it?
Yeah, we're going to
Sunday?
do. So the goal is to do one for every weekend of November. That'll be the idea.
Oh, cool. Nice.
Yep.
Awesome.
So
Yep.
yeah, so
Sweet.
yeah, like I say, appreciate you chatting with me. If anyone doesn't already follow along with what you're doing, I'll leave actually a couple of links, or I'll leave all your links down in the description on the show notes for the podcast or on YouTube, depending on where you're watching or listening, if you want to go check out more from Neil. And I'll leave also the Movember links down in the description if anyone's keen to contribute to that campaign as well. But is there anything else you want to plug? Neil, anywhere where people can are best to go to kind of follow along with what you're doing?
Nah, with me, I think you've pretty much covered it. I did just start a TikTok the other day after I noticed you've gone
same.
I've noticed you've gone down the TikTok road, which is not a road I really wanted to go down. But I was Tom's on there, better chuck one in. But no, definitely, I think you've pretty much covered it, man. Oh, we're on. Obviously, I'm not on Instagram for the YouTube channel, but we are for our business for Mountain Hut. And then I've recently got onto Twitter, but I'm not very active on there. But from what I have, I've been reading a few of the articles and stuff, and following what you and Brad and Frank and everyone else sort of seems to follow on there. And there's some fantastic resources on it, Twitter, So I think that's something I need to spend a bit more time on, to be honest. And giving you access to Monish, and well, not direct access, but hearing,
We can try.
It's always interesting to hear. Yeah, you can try.
Yeah, I've got a like once.
Nice. So yeah, thanks heaps for having me on again, man. It's always such a pleasure yarning with you, bro. It's awesome. Good talking to you, eh?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And one of these days, once we're out of the pandemic, I'll have to come to Japan for a snowboarding lesson, and you'll have to come back to New Zealand so we can go fishing, I think is the point. So
love to, bro. Love to, absolutely love to. Keen to catch one of these elusive kingies, which I've never been able to land.
Yeah,
I think I've had a few on the line, but I've never actually got one on boat, so it doesn't count.
Haven't had a reel with the horsepower to stop one?
We've had a few get onto the lines around the mussel farms around Coromandel, like when I go fishing with Dad. He's a bit off the mussel farms now. He thinks he's above the mussel farms, but I'm always like, yeah, that's easy money. Let's go where the fish are. But he thinks he's above that now. But anyway, you generally clean up around the mussel farms, especially while they're harvesting. It's easy fishing.
Yeah.
But because there's such a frenzy in the water with the snapper and the kahawai running, and there's a couple of kingies sort of circling in there as well. And if you pick one of them up, you bloody know about it. The only issue is when you're in those farms, there's so much. Obviously, all the mussel farms, all the buoys and all the ropes, they wrap you and then they ping the line within bloody 30 seconds flat, sort of thing. But it's fun for 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's a little bit like if you're casting lures for kingfish and like in the shallows, like if it's only 5-10 meters deep, or I've never caught one off the rocks, but if you're like casting lures off the rocks to try catch one, you got to have some good shoes on and just like max drag and hang on before you get reefed. So that looks pretty fun. Yeah. So Maybe we'll have to try that one day
What's
while
the
we're at it as
biggest?
well.
What's the biggest one you've managed to land? Like that one you had a picture was a beauty. That one you put up on
Uh,
YouTube, maybe 6 months back now. That was an absolute ripper.
yeah, yeah, that's the biggest one I've caught. We didn't weigh it. I think it was 1.19 or 1.20, which you can put in conversion charts, and I think that comes out
Oh
about
yeah,
22 kilos or something. Um,
yeah,
I
right.
don't know. I sort of thought it might be heavier than that because it looked pretty chunky, but apparently just in the
Yeah,
charts that's what it comes out at. So who
yeah.
knows? Yeah, we'll have to catch a
Call
big
it
one.
25.
Yeah, just every time
Yeah,
you
for
tell the
sure.
story, you add a couple kilos. All of a sudden, it's a world record.
I was at least 40.
Yeah,
That's every fisherman's story seems to be that.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
no, I'd love to,
Legit.
man. And
You
what's
got
your plan with? Are you heading up there this Christmas? You must be, up there for a month off or something.
yeah, fingers crossed if we're out of lockdown and all that. One of the great things about being in
Yep.
lockdown is you don't take annual leave, so you get a lot built up. Yeah. And I'll have to
Nice,
take. I
nice.
think I've got a full. I'll be able to take a full month. I think comfortably, probably. So I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Yep.
Hopefully, can have a good summer break.
Awesome. Nice,
Yeah.
nice. Have to catch a few
Uh,
kingies. Definitely, if
yeah.
I don't end up going back to Japan, I'll probably more than likely be coming back to New Zealand if conditions allow. If Jacinda lets me
Mhm.
in without doing quarantine. So I'll be dropping you a line and we'll go catch a fish.
Yeah. Yeah. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you very much, Neil. We better wrap it up there, but I'm looking forward to the mo that's coming through for this month for the 12 of us, and yeah, appreciate you coming on.
Yeah. Awesome, mate. Cheers, bro.
All right.
Catch ya.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Investing with Tom podcast. If you did enjoy it, please hit like and hit subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. That way you'll be able to see future podcast episodes as soon as they go live.